Now, the rest of the story.
And here we go. So I've been down here since 8:30 this morning. Ryan's been down here since 12:30. And this is the last cutting of the year. Third cut. We're down in probably the prettiest stuff. I say that just because, well, I mean, look at it. The windows should be clean so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But this bottom third cutting stuff is, I think, absolutely gorgeous. Now, it's not as tall as you typically see first cut, but first cut is usually all headed out, and that surely isn't the case with this stuff. Second cut, it was just starting to actually start to head out, and for second cut, which I guess never really gave much thought about it before that fact, but definitely glad I ended up going with the 3-cut program, and we kind of, let's call it what it is, we panic cut the second cut off of this, off 2/3 of the farm, and oh, excuse me, it yielded 226 bales, something like that. And today, after the whole works had gotten hit with liquid 32, an herbicide, radiate, which I'll talk more about that in a few, and I had to go through and spray the works for army worms. Yes, for those of you that are just casually tuning into this channel, which I think are few and far between, all of my loyal viewers know that army worms were a thing down here. Luckily, hitting them with the spray did the job. The seeding is not seeding, there isn't any seeding down here, but the grass came back up from being grubbed down to nothing. I mean nothing, I mean there's nothing there. I mean we're talking bare dirt. And it came back with the stuff's like just taller than leaving your yard grass go for about a week or two. I mean, it'll probably go through the machine, but probably not, or go through the disc mine, but probably not the cleanest. I mean, because if it's too light going through this, because I have the conditioner all the way down, which is irrelevant when you're cutting light material, what happens is then it surges through the machine, so it builds up on top of the shells in front of the impeller until you get enough material there that it catches all at once, and then you go across the field there, you got just little areas of piles of grass. This stuff's getting tedded out, most certainly once. Originally planning for like 3 cuttings. Once for sure, probably twice. I don't know if 3 times is really going to happen, because here's the timeline. Today is Friday, Thursday. I don't know if we're going to get done down here, because we still have a third of the farm to cut. We're not even done cutting what we're on. I mean, Ryan's up on the field bench. I opened up everything because I don't want Ryan going through with that Kuhn mower, or that 4640 for that matter, and opening up some of these fields, because he doesn't know where he should be driving. It's my responsibility as far as I'm concerned, because I want to make sure that we're not hitting stumps or any crap like that. So the big thing I got on this machine is that I have the hydraulically controlled header height adjustment, so I can tilt the cutter bar with the raise and lower. So once the lift cylinders are all the way down, then the cutter bar drops. And if you're oh so careful, you just hardly break that SCV, and I can adjust it. which is huge because I can have it tilted back on that outside round and avoid any sticks or anything that are there. That's kind of important for the fact that there's going to be a lot of stuff covered in this video. I opened up, I went through and cut the rest of the lower bottom. Now what that means is, for those of you that watched the reclaiming bottom and ground video where I went through and hit it with that Rhino 4155, I just went through and cut all that with the disc binder. So all that regrowth that was there is put up in a windrow. I only had one kind of bad close call with getting stuck, but that's how you know to stop. The same spot where I said, oh shit, when I was cutting it with the mower, or the cutter, but the ground is actually pretty dry down here. I mean, I came down through with the four-wheeler, which isn't a very good gauge because, let's face it, the tractor's gonna find mud on untouched ground a lot quicker than that little four-wheeler is carrying me. But at least I was able to go through and there's no standing water. All the low spots, even though we had an inch of rain yesterday morning. Does that sound right? Who really cares? But a day or two ago, we got an inch of rain down here, across everything actually, washed my driveway out, which I don't know what that's an indicator of at this point, because down here, like the driveways had puddles on them. But I went back down, that was yesterday. As I came down, yeah, so it rained that morning. Okay. I came down that night, or the next day. I came down the next day and with the four-wheeler, and 24 hours later, those puddles that were in the driveway on the gravel were pretty well dried up. Which, you know, a compacted driveway and a huge puddle, probably holding about 50 gallons of, at least, of water, had dried up. The field ground, believe it or not, is actually pretty dry. Still windrowing everything for two reasons. Number one, it's exposing more ground to the sun, which is really hot here lately. And it's going to help get the ground dried out, so when I do go through and ted it out, I'm laying this material out on hopefully dry ground. Number two, it's going to allow me to ted it easier when it's in a windrow. I've tedded the hay when it's been laid out flat before. You can do it. It's a lot harder on the teeth, on the tedder. So we've gotten a lot better at running that thing. But basically, I run it at idle, because you have to. Now, if you guys look behind you, you can actually see how open all that is now. I mean, there's a lot of real estate there that I've never cut before, which I think it is achievement unlocked. I think we'll go ahead and say that, because I believe I am officially at the point where I've cut, or I have cut, or will have cut, by the time we're done here, pretty much all the ground that I will ever be able to cut. Like all the low spots and the spots that when I first took this place back over 2 years ago where I left standing, there's a lot of ground down here. If it was just me running, this probably looking at a 3-day job. If it was just me. I ran for 4 hours just working on getting everything opened up and doing a few rounds around the outside, like on the upper bottom in the field. I mean, the neighbor's place, it's only got one round around it, and I've been working on this and the low spot back there. But just to put it in perspective for you guys, because the cameras, maybe the drone footage on Ryan's channel will help, but to put it in perspective as to how much running there is around down here, to do the outside round, not rounds, just literally to go around everything down here once, to go around the upper bottom, the lower bottom, the field ground, the neighbor's place, the other neighbor's place, and the pasture field. once took me an hour and a half, over an hour and a half. That is non-stop, constantly moving, constantly cutting, and I was going about 6.5, 7 miles an hour. I'm going 7.8 right now, and it feels like I'm standing still. And, you know, they're calling for rain again tomorrow, so let's address that. Yeah, they're calling for a chance of rain tomorrow night. I refuse to check the weather again until we're done cutting. Why am I cutting it? Because, well, I can keep putting it off, and the problem is that they could add rain in the forecast again for next week, and it's to the point now where our row crops are getting to the point we could be combining. I'd rather be harvesting corn and beans right now. Enjoying making hay, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm really hoping that we're not looking at a case of looking back for the next 5 years going, man, 2021 was the best year for making the hay down the valley, because it was the last time that I was able to cut everything. I'm hoping that's not the case. I mean, it could flood next spring and I might not be able to cut this again. It might take another year to dry out. But my logic is that I've been constantly pushing back those wetter areas, beginning with the brush mower. I did it back in December 2 years ago. There's a video of me doing that. I actually go back and watch periodically just because it's nice having perspective myself of seeing how little of this I was actually cutting. But going through and cutting it with the mower, at least getting some of that heavy material kind of ground up so it can break down, and then gradually taking more and more with this machine, and getting the ground exposed more frequently and allowing it to hopefully dry out more. Hoping is helping me. I'm gonna go ahead and swear right there, because honestly I don't know. I really do not know. I mean, it's bottom ground. It will never be row crops, ever. I rented this place from the landowners, whatever you want to call them, with the intentions that this is going to be a hay farm forever. And I'm perfectly content with that, because I personally don't have the gut to try to put row crops in down here. I don't. I mean, I've seen corn 9 miles up the river where the water was over the tassels. You imagine what that does 9 miles further down the river, down where we are, because we are, let's just say 2 miles from the Mississippi River. The neighbor's place over there, they got theirs made. I think that neighbor is actually the last person of actual field ground before you actually get down to where your next option is the Mississippi. And yeah, high risk, high reward maybe, but not this guy. We'll probably never ever have tile down here, but I should just go ahead and order it. 22B, I talked to the local dealership. I wouldn't have gotten it until like right now if I would have ordered it back in May. But it was a 22B mole plow, where it's a single shank, 3-point mounted subsoil shank with what they call it a mole, or gopher, however you want to say it. But it's a big cast iron ball that makes a poor man's tile. Granted, they say it depends on your soil type and when you do it and conditions and yada 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 yada. But honestly, that's kind of my intentions, is to probably, really should have just ordered it, because I'm sure I'm going to get into situations where I wish I had it, where put it behind the 76, the 76 can't do it, I'll put it behind the 82. Might look kind of silly, but put enough horsepower in the front of the thing until we break something. Drop it down as far as I can, and not even get carried away like trying to be all fancy about it, but literally just on these low spots where I just cut, where the water does sit, drop in on it, or even drop it in on the bank of the river. I've considered doing that too, like backing up to the river, dropping it down and then pulling it through the bank, and then driving out into the low spots as deep as you can and just try to get some impromptu tile going. Get that water somewhere to go, because the problem is, as with all drainage issues, is that the water has nowhere to go. The owners, back when they used to farm, they said that they did exactly what I just did. They always used to, where they made all this. Well, this is the first opportunity I've had to make that where it's been firm enough. It's not dry by any means. It's windrowed, so the sun and heat, they're calling for high 70s and 80s. I'm kind of hoping that's going to help dry that out so I can get it tedded out and bale it. Get that thatch, and it's going to be probably not the prettiest stuff, which I might be surprised, because honestly, I thought the weeds through it looked worse than they do, but once you get it cut, it looks like grass. So maybe somebody would be interested in buying it. I don't know. I mean, trying not to make it look like I'm literally just farming by the seat of my pants, but a lot of what I do on any given day is pretty much just kind of make it up as I go. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever watched the Dukes of Hazzard movie with Sean William Scott and Johnny Knoxville, where at the end of the movie they're going, "Time for Plan B." Yep, Plan B. And the narrator says it best. When you're flying by the seat of your pants, nothing sounds more official than a Plan B. And most of the days that you're hoping that you can stop at Plan B and you don't get cleared down to Plan Q, we've had days like that, but I don't know, I kind of feel like I've fallen ass backwards into a good thing. A lot of stress came along with doing this hay ground though. A lot of work, a lot of money, just to get third cut to grow in, or to come back that I did not account for. I mean, I ended up making first cut off of the field that Ryan's on back in August. I got a new window handle and it's brand new plastic and it squeaks. And you guys had a problem with the tractor seat, but this is driving me nuts. Listen to that handle squawk all day long. So I ended up going through and making the first cut off that first week of August, and then we came down and made this the following week, second cut off this in the neighbor's place, and then didn't plan on that extra expense because my intentions were I was going to be cutting second cut that I made a month and a half ago right now. My intentions were just let it grow. The stuff was starting to head out. At that point, letting it sit for another 6 to 7 weeks, 7 weeks, I would not have gained anything leaving this stuff go. My thing is that I'm putting all this foo-foo juice and nitrogen and dry fertilizer. I mean, this isn't cheap. You guys watch OLF, he's not exaggerating, which I understood he wasn't exaggerating, but even making, I call this production hay because there's no way I can feed this all to my cows, so I sell it. But it takes a lot of money to do this. It takes a lot of stress too, because you gotta try to make decent stuff. You don't want it to get rained on, which it's going to, but the stuff is green enough. The dew that we're getting at night here lately is stupid heavy that it's gonna almost take probably a 1/4 inch of rain, trying not to exaggerate there, of a steady shower or whatever, and I don't think it would be much worse than how heavy the dew is. It was 1 o'clock. Oh, it's getting dry. It was 1 o'clock, and you know, we're going east to west before the sun got to where these trees are, this tree line back here, and I was going through cutting these headlands through here, and it looked like the disc vine was smoking. I wasn't smoking. That was literally the amount of water that was getting thrown out the back. I mean, I should have shot a picture of that this morning when I first started. I come across the field up there, and you almost couldn't see the black plastic cover for the belt on the disc spine. There was that much water coming out the back. But it's September, it's the end of September, and they're calling what I'm assuming, you know what they say about assume, is going to be the last, probably the nice heat spell, run of heat, sun, nice weather we're really going to have, or drying conditions we're going to have before we completely click over to fall, which we're there as far as that goes. But high 70s, low 80s, they're calling for straight sunshine like we have so far today, and we're probably going to have to come down tomorrow and finish cutting the neighbors, because I got about a third of a tank of fuel left. By the time I get done doing this, we haven't even started. Maybe he did. Or Ryan may have started on the neighbor's place. Hold on. Pull ahead here a little bit so I can actually see it. Maybe? Well, I'll be... Well, that's a negative, Ghost Rider. Ryan has started the neighbor's place, which means I gotta get the lead out of my ass. And we're gonna push to get this done tonight, because I thought the neighbor's place wouldn't get done. Just do it tomorrow. So, whatever. I'm gonna leave this stuff in the windrow tomorrow. If they're calling for rain, let it get rained on the windrow, because the windrow will protect the grass underneath. And then I'll come down Saturday, probably Sunday, unless it gets really stupid hot and nice. And we'll ted it Saturday, Sunday, make it Monday, Tuesday, haul it out. Wednesday, Thursday, start combining. Maybe Dad and Ryan will start combining Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it. If we get the stuff off the field, maybe I'll just make it my headache. I'll worry about getting the stuff moved. I don't know. Things are going to start getting ugly, hectic around here. I already kind of warned Brittany about that last night, that I already knew the next few days were going to be kind of ugly. Just, trying to do this. And the hay is actually... You guys want to hear an honest truth? My hay ground is actually going to grow pretty comparable to... I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say it. But the hay ground is actually looking like it's going to carry its weight very well this year. The hay market didn't get as stupid crazy as they were thinking it would, because we didn't get a full-blown drought like a lot of people were really worried about, which I don't want a drought, but we got enough moisture for our crops. Our row crops look nice. This stuff, the landowners, they've owned this since, well, it's been in the family for 100 years. Gosh, that sounded... Yeah. This may have been in the landowner's family for going on over 100 years. Wow. But they said, in a drought, the bottom itself will still yield. So, I mean, I would have made something off this down here, but the field ground up there is a work in progress. The gumbo is just ridiculous up there, but if I could get the reed canary established across the rest of the ground, I'd be perfectly fine with that. This stuff it's called invasive grass. Nobody likes it, but I don't know, I must be doing something right then. It's doing something. It's doing something for me. And going back to the whole making a third cut off of it, a lot of that boils down to the fact that the ground's getting taken care of. And I don't say that to put anybody down, but I know for a fact that I am the first person, probably the history of ever, that's drug a dry fertilizer buggy across this. In the beginning of this spring, which I did it the previous year. I had it too. Don't get me wrong. Or back a couple years ago. But then going through spraying second crop, after first crop, I ended up spraying down here twice for second crop, and then I ended up spraying the third crop, the growth coming up for third crop. I ended up spraying that down here. I ran the sprayer across this 3 times. First pass nitrogen, second pass radiate and weed killer, third pass was the insecticide purely for the armyworms. And if I hadn't done that and I'd have lost this down here to the fucking bugs, worms, it wouldn't have made it online, but you'd have seen a whole new level of rage. Especially because that stuff is like every man's nightmare. You read up on them armyworms, they can literally clear out an entire field in hours. Not a night, not a day, but literal hours. There's a picture on Twitter that I got, they sent it to me. They said it was on Twitter. A guy that went through, was cutting hay, and he said nothing on his mower all day, but they come out in the early morning and late at night, late evening. Late in the day, evening. And the picture was the front of his machine where the hoods are, where I fold them up so I can get to the blades. There's easily an inch of armyworms built up across those hoods, the front hood. And you can, if they're hitting you that hard, you can see why they can completely just demolish your stand of feed. And I'm not going to say what or how much I truly do have in this, in just this cutting alone. It's several thousands of dollars. Several, not a couple, not a few, several. So when you guys see me post videos where I look like I'm mean or I'm ornery or I'm not having the best of days, the reason for that is because I'm not a happy-go-lucky dipshit. That in every video that I'm going to post is me just smiling and laughing that we don't have any headaches or heartaches on the farm. Putting a lot of stress on me and a fair amount of risk to it, especially when you start talking armyworms that can do damage like they can, for putting out several thousands of dollars worth of inputs to make a third cutting of hay that I didn't plan on making. That's where the whole flying by the seat of your pants thing comes in, where I didn't, plan on it. It's beyond stressful. I had a guy ask me in the comments if I actually like farming, if I look like I'm not having fun, or I don't enjoy it, or all I'm doing is bitching about it. I say, I don't put it lightly at all, but I was literally born to be a farmer. I mean, it's not like my parents said that you are going to be a farmer. None of that. I was encouraged to look at other career paths. I am hands down an individual that I decided that I was going to be a farmer from the day I was old enough to sit in Dad's lap and ride across the field in the tractor, all the way through high school, all the way through college, all the way through the financial strain of getting started, and my determination to live the rest of my life being a farmer, improving, constantly trying to adapt and deal with the constant changes in the ag industry. And things have actually kind of gone down here the last couple weeks, all positive, believe it or not, that I won't be saying really going to be addressing on here, but it really helps my bottom line. But it's, you know, ag related, whatever. It has to do with the farm. But diversifying your income is pretty huge too, which helped me out bigly. So this stuff is yielding awesome. I'm not going to put out any numbers out there as to what I'm hoping it's going to run after cutting it. My original number I was telling you guys is I was looking for about 200 originally. I'm not really willing to throw out a number I think this is going to run. I mean, the bottom looks awesome. It had that, depending on the light that you had across, it was that nice, pretty blue, like across it. I mean, this stuff's healthy. I mean, it better be for everything I'm putting on it. But then doing the outside couple rounds around the neighbor's place where the trees and the grass type that's there, where it was shaded, there really wasn't much there, which you get out in the bigger chunk of the field where the better running is, I mean, then you're fine and there's something there. But in regards to comparing it to harvesting row crops, it takes a lot of high yielding 220 bushel corn to make the whole farm average 200 when you only have a few acres or a couple acres that don't yield anything at all. It takes a lot of material, corn, beans, hay, to bring up your average from 0 when you're taking that off of the average on everything else. Then everything else has to yield that much better to, you know what I mean. I'm going to talk about radiate really quick, and then this video is already way too long. You guys probably aren't even watching. Radiate. I am going to continue to do radiate. It is a PGR, plant growth regulator. Where has it been my whole life? I contribute that to part of the reason. I mean, the liquid nitrogen that I put on was pretty big too, but the PGR, that radiate, and the nitrogen did a pretty wicked job of getting this stuff to do what it did. The reason I say that is because I had an area that I know for a fact did not get any radiate, and we're talking like differences of, you know, the stuff that didn't get radiates like somewhere around here, and the stuff that did get radiates currently going through the disc bind, and it was, you know, now I'm not going to say it was twice as heavy, but when I knew it didn't get the nitrogen, because it was this particular spot of the field where the only thing it got was the radiate, the weed killer, and the insecticide. So it had no extra nitrogen there, and you could see where, comparing it to where it didn't get anything at all, to where it had the radiate, to the area that had all three, and the radiate is definitely worth the money. And we're talking what, $4 to the acre? That's pennies. What, $400 or $500 for a jug of it? Pennies, compared to what it's doing. I mean, you got to do everything you can to make as much money as possible doing this thing we love called farming. So I'm going to end it right there because I'm losing my voice.